Hey guys, Liko here. How's it going? Thanks to everyone who's been watching my recent Magicka setups for this new Greymoor chapter. Really appreciate the fact that you took time out of your day to do so. One of the biggest questions, worries and/or complaints was the perceived risk of using the new Vampire Spammable, Blood for Blood. The reason being because it costs health to cast rather than Magicka. So there have been a lot of comments saying that this is silly because you're going to get yourself killed if you use it, which admittedly is still true in a few situations if you're not thinking about it. But anyway, really I just wanted to show some footage from yesterday to alleviate some of these concerns. Now I have two clips to show, both kind of different in terms of the style of the fight. The first will be a Captain Vrol fight from the new trial, Kyne's Aegis. So thanks to Divinity on PCEU for letting me come along to the first progression raid since the official launch of Greymoor. Now here you'll see a typical quote-unquote stack and burn fight where generally your level of healing is assured. The second clip, which you'll see later on in the video, is from a casual late night Asylum Sanctorium raid with the Roleplayers Guild, also on PCEU. Now if you've ran here before as a damage dealer, then you'll know that healing can be a little scarcer and there is a lot of time where you'll be at a range distance, so running Blood for Blood is a little more difficult. But hopefully here you'll see that if you're sensible about it, it can be done with some really nice results. So here's the first clip. I'm on a Magicka Warden, and I'm actually using the same build that I showed in the build video, which I'll have in the description below as a reference. So that means Sororia, Soro, and Zana. The only difference is the usage of Blood Altar on my back bar, and really that's only to provide major toughness for everyone since I was the only Warden in the group. I don't think I dropped Sororia stacks here at all, which means it's hands down the best set to use in my situation here in this fight. Now, you'll see throughout this fight that I use Blood for Blood several times, and although it costs HP, you'll not even notice it. My HP goes up to full right away in most cases. I don't have too much to comment on in terms of the strategies that we used here. I think individual groups are still figuring out what's best for them, and what I'm doing here is really just following along with some of the instructions. One example you see right here is killing these conduits that appear off to the side. I don't have to move, I apply a few dots, the earlier the better since you'll get more ticks, and then we move on. Later on in this fight you'll see that there are meteor phases, and it's only here really that there might be a little risk in using Blood for Blood at the same time as getting hit by the skill. Now for those of you interested in how the Warden Bear does in the new trial, I think there's good news. As far as I can tell from my own experiences and by data from others, the Warden Bear is doing fantastically well here compared to other trials such as Sunspire, where the bear seems to be afraid to hit the dragons consistently. In some situations though, you may be forced to play almost exclusively at ranged, and in these cases it probably won't be worth using Blood for Blood. You'd have to make a decision based on your exact scenario and situation. The same goes for classes. For example, in some but not all situations on the Magicka Sorcerer, it might not be worth using Blood for Blood as your main spammable, say if you wanted to proc Crystal Fragments, for pure single target damage situations. Anyway, this is all I really have to say about this fight. Blood for Blood is looking pretty safe, and this, bear in mind, is with one healer running a damage dealer / debuff setup with Martial Knowledge and Zen, rather than straight up healing, I think. And yeah, after this fight I'll show the VAS clip, and then after that I'll show a few CMX screenshots to see why Blood for Blood is a big deal anyway, damage wise.
Can do it. Behind the group. You, sure.
Don't go, lady. Look right and let's hold.
Okay.
Block.
Like
Lady or Retro. Block. Block again. Block.
3, 2.
So here in VAS, I'm again on my Magicka Warden, a slightly different setup this time. Gear wise, I'm using Spell Strategist and False God, as well as Slime Crawl as the monster set, which means I've shown two completely different sets of gear in these two fights. Skill wise, I'm using a shield for safety for one, but I'm also using the Netch for sustain, as well as the Warden Bird Spammable for situations where I need to be ranged. The birds also heal me a bit, so I would also cast this in situations where I feel like I do need a bit more HP and there's a slight lack of healing. You do notice here that I will try to cast Blood for Blood as much as possible here, which means staying in melee in any possible situation. Some examples of where Blood for Blood may not be the best idea are during kites, during Arms' big jumps, and actually I also wouldn't do it if I was in a Lothis cone either, and especially not where these mechanics are overlapping. In this group, we have pretty defined points of major vulnerability up on Arms, basically after every sphere phase, like right now. After putting down dots, this is the perfect time to be using Blood for Blood since it's so bursty and you're getting the most out of these short, bursty phases. For reference, my Blood for Blood at the end of this fight was hitting on average, I think 40% harder than birds, which shows how strong taking advantage of this situation is. Tooltip wise, Blood for Blood, when used at full HP, is only supposed to be 10 to 15% stronger, and here we're not even taking into account the bird's bonus damage for being at a longer distance, which I'm pretty sure is made use of a fair bit here. By the way, everything that I've mentioned here can apply to all Magicka DD specs, not just the Magicka Warden. Predictably though, I think Magicka Nightblade will have it best, where they can have no issues with healing via Swallow Soul. I think they'd also be able to quite happily take advantage of the new Vampire toggle as well, which forces your character to ignore any outside sources of healing when it's on. But that's a story for another day. Since I am on a Magicka Warden here, I may as well talk about some of the specifics of this class in this fight. The bear actually does a lot of single target DPS to the boss. It does about 11% of my total damage, which is honestly pretty good. This is despite one of the bear's attacks, Crushing Swipe, not hitting Alms at all really. The bear tries to cast his ability 28 times, but only hit with 3. And this means I lost around 3.5k single target DPS in this fight, or 6% of my total damage. And this is something that affects the Warden bears in other trials such as Sunspire as well, which is why a lot of people really dislike Wardens. This is something that needs to be fixed. Some of the good things though are Deep Fissure, which provides some nice strong AoE damage, which is really great when the mini-bosses are stacked, and the fact that it provides Major Breach can come in handy when killing and debuffing the spheres too. Thetra Infection is also great in this regard, since it can be used to debuff the main boss as well as the sphere with minor vulnerability. Back to the topic at hand, you'll notice that I haven't really had any super hairy situations with using Blood for Blood here so far. In fairness, you can count me kind of lucky. However, here my Magicka got completely drained when the huge lightning AoE landed on top of me. And as you can see, Blood for Blood is a perfect use case here, since I can pretty much continue doing DPS with Blood for Blood despite my Magicka being pretty much empty. Here, I might have put myself in a bit of a sticky situation, but I think the front kite healer had me covered here. Thanks Style Anima for keeping an eye on me there, and yeah, it's a timely reminder of the vital role that your support classes play, so do remember to treat them nicely. Here we're about to enter Execute. After these big jumps, we get the added fire mechanic in Execute. And here, as before, we're trying as much as possible to be in melee range using Blood for Blood. No real changes to our survivability whilst doing so. In a score push, I would probably be pushing the boundaries to squeeze an extra Blood for Blood cast here and there instead of a bird whenever possible, but here there isn't a real need to do so, and to be able to stay alive and finish the job is more important. The fact that Blood for Blood is so strong here does help Magicka Wardens as well as other classes without an Execute to be more competitive, but Magicka Nightblades, as briefly touched upon earlier, are still kings in this phase, since they can do a crazy amount of damage from any range position, not just melee. Another thing about Warden though, is the fact that Bloodthirsty is now successfully passed down to the bear. I think the bear hit for 187k in one instance, which is pretty big, but depending on the buffs available, can be even higher. For example, we didn't have anyone on Major Slayer in this group composition. Now, this wasn't the cleanest of finishes by any means, but hopefully this gives you all an idea of how not completely suicidal it is to use Blood for Blood in Asylum. Apologies in advance to any raid leads that still do not want their DDs using this skill. Do remember, rule number 1 is always to cooperate with your teammates. It's just the same as slotting Belly Breath or Zarn when your raid lead wants you to use Ice Heart. Let's have a quick look at the CMX to finish. You can see that my average hit with Blood for Blood is around 49k on the main boss. The Cliff Racer Bird did around 35k, as did Deep Fissure. The differences here are slightly more exaggerated than usual, I'd say, due to the crit RNG that you see here, but hopefully this gives you an idea of why there's so much fuss about Blood for Blood in the first place. And here is the CMX from the first clip, where we can see again that Blood for Blood is hitting pretty hard, but this time with Deep Fissure doing slightly more damage to the boss per hit, again mainly due to the slightly better than average crit RNG. Anyway, that's it from me. This is Liko. Stay healthy, use Blood for Blood, and have a good day.